Election 2024 is over. America has voted, and both sexism and racism have won the day. On Liberal Dan Radio, we will hold everyone accountable, from the media that failed to report the threat that Trump poses to this nation, to the people who supported him. We will pick up the mantle to educate the people about his actions, from being dictator on day one, pardoning January 6th domestic terrorists, implementing Project 2025, and any other draconian measures he tries to pass. And now, the resistance begins. Welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zerman, coming at you live from New Orleans, Louisiana. If we do open up the phone lines, it would be 562-LIBDAN1, that's 562-542-3261, but that won't happen till later, if it happens at all, because I have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about today. Now, I, have talked about on the show before that how am I putting this? I didn't want Donald Trump to win to give me a lot, because even though I knew it would give me a lot of things to talk about. Like, I knew a Donald Trump victory would give me a lot of content for this podcast. That being said, I said well before the election that I did not want that much. I'd rather my podcast talk about dull, boring stuff and about how the Republicans are just simply trying to screw things up, from the minority. That would be better, but I'd really rather not. And if you follow me on Liberal Dan Radio on Facebook, because I'm Liberal Dan Radio everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, yada, yada, yada. I posted on my Facebook page today that I'm really tired of Donald Trump giving me so much content for my show. The reason why is because I kept on filling out my sort of outline or timeline or whatever, what all the stuff I was going to talk about today. And there's so much stuff. I think there's so much stuff that I forgot. I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't even think I talked about the Pete Hegseth thing on Monday because we were too busy ranting about all the other stuff, and there's even more stuff to talk about today. So, hey, thank you, Bill, for being a liberal Danimal for 7 months. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much for that. Let's see. If you're watching right now, you know that, you can either chat at liberaldanradio.com on the live thread or on twitch.tv/liberaldanradio, either way. So that's fine. Again, phone lines will open up later, maybe, if we get through everything that, I want to get to. Let's see, but let's go through at first and see all of the early opt-inners, I guess, all the early people coming into the chat, including Aaron, Steve from across the pond.
It's no Scottish, it's crap!
We've got Jeff from just north of Uranus. We got Bill. And that's about, we have 11 current viewers, it says, so maybe some people haven't even said hey yet, but hello everybody who is watching. I appreciate it. Hey, Mad Mac, good to see you as well. 250 kilo ohms over on Twitch is over there. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Again, this is a first Wednesday in 2 weeks, because last week I was not feeling it. Yes, a virtual smorgasbord of crap from Trump. And if you want a smorgasbord, you don't want a smorgasbord of crap. And you don't want any smorgasbord given to you by Donald Trump anyway. So anyway, does anybody remember if I talked about the Pete Hegseth thing in the second single chat? I think now that I'm talking about it, I think I might now remember that I might actually have talked. I may have actually talked about it, but someone in the chat might remember and can confirm that. So if we need to, we can go back and talk to it a smidge. There's not much to talk about it. when it comes to that. Just like also another programming note, which is after this show, about 5 to 10 minutes after this show, whenever we end, because I'm going to talk about all my topics because I have to, I will probably be hopping over to my nerdydan.com stream on Twitch. Why? Because one of the games that I play, the Disney Dreamlight Valley game, has a new expansion that's just, or not an expansion, but a new software update that came out today. Lots of new things to take part in, including some Star Wars stuff, which is awesome. And so I'm going to want to play some of that streaming on the first day of it being out there. That being said, it'll be after we finished all of the topics of conversation today. So you're not going to miss anything because of the games, but if you want to continue conversating with me, after this ends, we'll head it over to nerdydan.com on Twitch if you wish to continue chatting about stuff. Anyway, Jackie's here. Good to see you, Jackie. Thank you for joining. Penny to Create as well. Good to see you. Thank you all for showing up. I know Wednesday sometimes we have sometimes a smaller audience because of reasons, but as our president says,
it is what it is.
Anyway, but of course he doesn't think he's president. He thinks he's king.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
So, anywho, we're going to talk about a bunch of I have so much stuff to upload. Like, I did no video processing at the end of Monday's show. I think I just went to bed or something. I don't know. I didn't have the time to do anything. So I'm way behind on podcast work. Good to see you, Progressively Independent. Thank you for joining as well. Anyway, so what are we going to start with first, according to my timeline at least? The first thing we're going to talk about is Donald Trump has posed an idea that he wants to have a $5,000 baby bonus because he thinks the United States birth rate needs to be higher. Now, according to The Hill, the United States birth rate hit a low in 2023 with just under 3.6 million babies born. You'd think the birth rate would have been super high once we came out of lockdowns, or at least 9 months after we came out of, lockdowns. But I said, if you wanted to make a lot of money, one thing you might want to do is invest in condoms during the condom manufacturers during the pandemic, because afterwards people might be making a lot of use of those condoms. I don't know if that actually panned out. I'm not a financial advisor, so don't listen to me on any investment advice. That being said, I wouldn't have been surprised if we would have seen a COVID baby boom or post-COVID sexual boom, trying to, make up for lost time when everybody was, at least for the people who are being, responsible and safe. Because we all know there are lots of people who weren't responsible and safe, and those people typically wear red hats and probably voted for Donald Trump and, otherwise are problematic. Anyway, so when asked in the Oval Office about the possible financial reward to people who give birth, Trump responded, "Sounds like a good idea to me." New York Times first reported it. He seems to think it's a good idea. But here's the thing with that. Donald Trump, a lot of people think that he has talked about, basically lied about how much wealth he has, that he claims to have so much wealth, but some people think that it's actually less than what he claims. That being said, he's still rich. He's still wealthy. I mean, even if he wasn't an actual billionaire, like some people even question if he was a billionaire. Even if he wasn't an actual billionaire, being a 100 millionaire is also not a horrible thing to be, if for the person who is the multi-millionaire. And he doesn't know about raising kids and the costs that come with raising a kid. He has no clue. All he had to do was, pay the checks, write the checks, or have somebody else, spend the money to raise his 5 kids. He didn't need a $5,000 incentive to have more kids. He just had more kids. But, with the fact that abortion has become illegal in many areas. So we might see higher birth rates simply for that, which seems to me to, I don't know how it's efficient to give people $5,000 simply because they had a kid. That's definitely not efficient. And now people who are living, who are in poverty, people who are in the working class, people who, are not part of the ownership class, not part of the millionaire, billionaire class, any of us would probably like to have an extra $5,000 at any given time. There's no doubt with that. But this is like, bread and circuses, if you speak. This is a let's throw some pennies at them to keep them happy while we rob the economy and do things to manipulate the stock market. So the people will be happy, supposedly, if you give them a little $5,000 reward for having a kid. But, he hopes to distract us. That's my opinion, at least. He's hoping to distract us on all the other things. Well, here on Liberal Dan Radio, we will not be distracted from his tactics. And again, he doesn't understand how $5,000 and what $5,000 would mean to a family. Let's say you had a family of 4 and you're going to have a third kid. That family could probably make very good use of $5,000, but that $5,000 is going to go away rather quickly, and it's not going to be nearly enough to cover the extra expenditures of having another kid. Simple as that. So, if I was sitting there and trying to make a decision as to whether or not I wanted to have a baby, like, can I afford a baby? And the answer typically to that question, unless you're wealthy, is no. So you really never can afford a baby. It's just a matter of when you decide to actually have a baby, because kids are expensive regardless of, what little scraps that Donald Trump wants to throw at the peons. But he doesn't understand the cost of raising a kid. He probably thinks that $5,000 would cover you for years. You don't need formula because you can breastfeed. You can, reuse diapers. He probably thinks you could reuse regular diapers that you buy, not the cloth diapers. Whatever he thinks that you could buy for $5,000. It's probably way overestimating the effect that it would have on a family who just had a kid. And on the other hand, he doesn't understand what $5,000 would mean regardless. He doesn't understand how helpful it would be in the short term, but in the long term, it's never going to be what causes one to have a kid. One's going to either have a baby because they planned it, or they're going to have a baby because the state forced them to, because abortion laws are now becoming more and more draconian. And if those people can't afford to, go to another state to obtain an abortion, then they're going to, thank you, ASAX1A for following me. If they can't afford to get to another state to get an abortion, then they're going to, probably appreciate the $5,000 for the kid in the short term. But again, it's not going to cover the costs. It's probably only going to cover the costs for a year, if not more. Now, if he was talking about putting a $5,000 tax credit for every kid that you have and making it permanent on the taxes every year, that would be a completely different story. That would be something that I could get behind. That would be Donald Trump being a stop clock, i.e. being right for once. I think stopped clocks are correct more than Donald Trump is. That being said, if there was a plan to give a $5,000 refundable tax credit, i.e. you wouldn't need to actually owe any income tax to receive the tax credit, kind of like the earned income credit and, the child, whatever, that already exists, the $2,000 per kid. If you were going to up that to an additional $5,000 to like $7,000 per kid, then sure, I think that would be a much better idea, but they're never going to do that. They're just going to think that the one shot is going to be good enough, and that's the end of it. So anyway, this is a stupid idea from a stupid president. But what do you think? Do you agree, disagree with me? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe, and of course, unless you're a Nazi, have a good day. Of course, if you're new to watching the show, what I usually do is if I have a planned thing I want to talk about and I want to upload that video later, I will typically do all of the stuff in the video, including telling you to have a good day, even though I'm not ending the podcast. So that was one of many things that I'll be recording today as we discuss the topics of the show. 5,000 means there's an attachment. 5 per kid. Okay, ladies, I'll split it 50-50. Do they still pay the hospital bill, seeing as those are a thing? Well, I mean, if you're on Medicare or Medicaid, if you're on Medicaid, you'll get the hospital will cover. But no, it might not. For some people's insurance, the $5,000 credit might not even be enough to cover the deductible and the maximum out of pocket, like all of the expenses in giving birth. It's just going to offset some of those things, and then once that's all done and paid off, guess what? The money is just going to go poof, and then they'll still be, suffering in this Trumpian economy. If he would stop doing stupid stuff, then yeah, maybe it would be better for people and their wallets and pocketbooks and bank accounts, etc. But it's not, because again, he doesn't understand. It's close to $30,000 to deliver a non-complication pregnancy. Yeah, I mean, we don't see that simply because of the fact that typically when we have in America our for-profit health insurance system, and we pay our premiums of $1,000 a month is what I pay, roughly, maybe a little less, for just health insurance premiums. Of course, I actually throw on a little additional on top of that to put into my FSA account, which is now almost completely gone because of all our medical bills. But we typically don't see the price of things as it comes our way, simply because of the fact that, we're only paying the co-payments and the deductibles, etc. So unless you have like a high premium or low premium, high deductible type plan, then you might see more of it, but you're still not going to see all of it. And if you're in the low premium, high deductible plan and you hit your max out of pocket already, guess what? Then you're really not going to see the price. Let's see. Is there a paradise in Texas? I thought the devil was in the state governor. Yes, there is a paradise, Texas. Oh, God. Jeff Curry says, Dan, Uranus named their mini golf putt pirates. That's amazing. Gotta love Uranus. Wait. That needs
Oh, my.
Hey, what's up, Alton? Good to see you as well. Who else did I miss as I was talking about stuff? Teresa, good to see you, Teresa. Thank you for joining the show. I think I've gone back far enough to see everybody who's jumped on in. So, yeah, it's silly. Now, and the amount that the health insurance costs adding on to, whatever I was paying on a paycheck. Because remember, I talked about this during the pandemic, because I was, between jobs, I ended up getting on Medicaid, and then the state Medicaid didn't kick people off until, well later. Like I had Medicaid for like 2-3 years until they finally decided to kick me off. And if you look at my taxes from last year and this year, you see a significant difference on my taxable income, a significant decrease. Why? Because we're paying almost $1,000 a month, so that automatically decreased my income, by my taxable income by 12 grand. It's nuts. But the question, Alton, is can you see paradise by your dashboard light? Ain't no doubt about it, we were doubly blessed. Because we were barely 17 and we were barely dressed. I wonder if YouTube would have a problem with that song or people singing it because of the conversation or the topic of two people who were barely 17 and trying to, do it. Anyway. Hey, Janelle, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. What to talk about next? Let's see. I don't think I have this in the right order. Maybe I do. No. Let's see. Let's move that over here before we start recording it. Can't see it, but I can smell it. Smell what? I don't know. Let's see. So let's go ahead and start recording again for our next one because, we have lots of stuff to talk about today. So we're trying to kind of hammer it out. The border agents have gone nuts. Our entire immigration policy under Donald Trump has gone completely nuts. It's completely bonkers. It's terrible. It's Nazi-esque in many ways. And it's a shame that people just can't see it. We have failed the people in this country and our education system by not teaching them about how the Nazis rose to power. We have not taught them. And we'll talk about other examples of this administration being Nazis in a bit. But we have several examples. We have U.S. Border Patrol arrested and imprisoned a U.S. citizen with learning disabilities in Arizona for over a week earlier this month, because he approached an immigration officer asking for help after he had a medical issue. Now, the government obviously has given a separate discussion of the encounter. 19-year-old Jose Hermosillo was arrested April 8th in Tucson. Hermosillo said in an interview that he had been in town that day to visit his girlfriend's family when he suffered from a seizure and took an ambulance to the hospital. He did not bring his ID with him because it was an emergency. Obviously, you're not going to think about taking an ID with you in an emergency, especially if you're having a seizure. When he was released, Hermosillo approached a Border Patrol officer, believing the officer could help him get back to the place he was staying. Instead, the officer accused him of being in the U.S. illegally and arrested him, despite Hermosillo saying that he was a U.S. citizen. He asked for his papers. Hermosillo said the officer accused him of lying about being from New Mexico, saying, "Don't make me out like I'm stupid. I know you're from Mexico." His family could very well be from there. I don't even know where the officer, ordered Hermosillo, who cannot read and could only write his name, to sign a supposed transcript of the encounter. The Department of Homeland Security later posted a copy of the document on X, claiming that Jose said that he is a citizen of Mexico and had crossed the border via the desert. DHS claimed that Hermosillo approached an officer, stating that he had illegally entered the U.S. and identified himself as a Mexican citizen. Mr. Hermosillo's arrest and detention were a direct result of his own actions and statements, even though, he has a learning disability and can't read and can only, sign his name. Grace Hernandez, his girlfriend, said he has learning disabilities and did not graduate high school. If he did sign it, he doesn't know how to read or nothing. He doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't really understand. He says yes to anything, so he could or could not have done it or without knowing what it was. Immigration agents held Hermosillo for 10 days at the Florence Correctional Center in Arizona. He said he was in a freezing cold cell with 15 men, with inmates who were sick. Hermosillo was released Thursday after his family provided proof of his citizenship, including a birth certificate and social security card. So apparently that's what they needed. He told a judge that he was a citizen 2 days into his detention, but was detained for an additional week after prosecutors requested that his hearing be delayed. The administration is also reporting totally disappearing some immigrants, arresting them and leaving no trace of where they were sent. The case of Venezuelan immigrant Ricardo Prada Vasquez, who in January erroneously crossed a bridge in Detroit leading to Canada while delivering a food order and was detained by border agents when he tried to re-enter the country. His friends said the last contact he had with him was March 15th, the day Trump deported 230 immigrants to El Salvador, but Prada is not on the list of people deported. So here's the question I have about that. The 230 immigrants who were deported, was it really only 230, or is it more than 230 and they're just lying, and they're deporting other people without a trace? Prada's friends say he had basically simply disappeared. So this is Border Patrol acting ridiculous. I mean, papers, please? Come on. I thought we dealt with the whole papers, please thing, especially in Arizona, a while back. And let's see, the documents that Hermosillo had, it's filled out, and, the affidavit is here. Let's see if we can switch on over real quick. It is kind of not getting smaller and smaller. He has told me his statement. He just told he was right to remain silent, and then here's a bunch of stuff. It's not really readable on my screen, so I'm not really going to worry about that. But they did go ahead and post. Homeland Security went ahead and posted it. But again, I have no reason to believe that what is being said by the Border Patrol agents are true. And more on that in a second. We have another person, somebody who is researching cancer and helping to improve cancer diagnosis. But ICE detained the Harvard scientist who analyzes the images of cancer. The end version is Ksenia Petrova. I apologize if I butchered the name. Without this scientist's expertise, no one can fully unlock the data's potential, putting crucial advancements in early cancer detection at risk. A groundbreaking microscope at Harvard Medical School could lead to breakthroughs in cancer detection, reports NBC News, and research into longevity. But the scientist who developed the computer scripts to read its images and unlock the full potential has been in immigration detention for 2 months, putting crucial scientific advancements at risk. The scientist is a 30-year-old Russian-born Ksenia Petrova who worked in Harvard's renowned Kirshner lab until her arrest at a Boston airport, and she's now being held at ICE's Richwood Correctional Facility here in Louisiana, in Monroe, Louisiana, and is fighting possible deportation to Russia, where she says she fears persecution and jail time because she has protested the war in Ukraine. So if we actually send this woman back to Russia, she could die. But even if we decide to, even if she doesn't die if she's deported back, or if for some reason, whatever happens with her, if she's not allowed to stay here, then and she can't, advance her research and help the others advance their research, guess what? People are going to die needlessly because this person's expertise could help save lives. The MAGA, the Republican Party, which is just one and the same right now, is a culture of death. They want people to die when it comes to, dangerous abortions. They want people to die. They're at least looks like they want people to die by jailing people who are doing important scientific work for BS reasons. And they risk her death if they send her back to Russia. Petrova says, I would call it a grinding machine, who spoke with NBC News from the Louisiana facility. We are in this machine, and it doesn't care if you have a visa, green card, or any particular story. It just keeps going. Petrova's case and detention of academics across the country has damaged the ability of universities in the United States to recruit and retain leading talent experts, and Petrova's colleague said. In fields where expertise is often highly specialized, the loss of talent could have dire consequences globally for the future of medicine and scientific discovery. So they're willing to put people at risk because they're being absolutely ridiculous on this whole, detention and deportation thing. Again, this person is here legally, but they're going to revoke it. Why? Because she protested the Ukraine war? Is Donald Trump just simply doing Putin's bidding? I mean, we all know that he does. We all know that Donald Trump is Putin's bitch. But, this is just taking it to the extreme. Petrova's first immigration court hearing in Louisiana is scheduled for Tuesday morning. Her lawyer, Gregory Romanovsky, said that they expect to have more information on her asylum case after the hearing. Dr. Leon Peshkin, a principal research scientist at Harvard's Department of Citizen Biology and Petrova's manager and mentor, received a call from Customs and Border Protection on February 16th after agents detained her at Logan International Airport in Boston for failing to declare samples of frog embryos to be used in scientific research. So because she didn't mention that she had embryos of frogs, they detained her. They got a call saying she's not entry. That's all we can tell you to protect her privacy. Yeah, protecting her privacy. She doesn't want her privacy protected in that way. Let her out and let her do her job. But there's even more when it comes to this. I mean, I should have this being a fat man rant, but I'm not. There's even more. 2 German tourists were deported from Hawaii. Like 19-year-olds. They weren't even 20 yet. April 2025, according to Snopes. Now, here's the thing. Remember when Snopes was something that conservatives hated? You would post to Snopes and they would be like, oh, Snopes is biased. You can't trust Snopes. You can't trust factcheck.org. You can't trust any of this stuff because they didn't believe the fact checkers. And now we've gone full 180 because now conservatives are pointing at this Snopes article on this story specifically and saying that Snopes proved that the story that was given by the two women who were detained and then deported, they said it proves the Border Patrol story and says that they lied about their reasons for being here. Did they? Well, because here's the problem. The Border Patrol is the ones who are making the claims that Christine or Charlotte Pohl and Marie Lepere, then 19 and 18 respectively, according to German reports, border police handcuffed and strip searched them before detaining them overnight, eventually deporting them to Japan at their own request. At the time of this writing, details confirmed by U.S. Customs and Border Protection were at odds with accounts given by Pohl and Lepere. So the accounts that they're given, this is the wording of CBP Assistant Commissioner Hilton Beckham, that says that the pair were denied entry, not deported. And it says, these travelers were denied entry after attempting to enter the U.S. under false pretenses. One used a visitor visa, the other used a visa waiver program. Both claimed that they were touring California, but later admitted that they intended to work, something strictly prohibited under U.S. immigration laws. However, those people, the people who were detained, these two young women, deny that. They claim that that's false. According to them, when it was our turn, the border official checked our passports. We had to give fingerprints. A photo was taken, the usual procedure. And then questions started, where we were staying, what our route plans were, where we had been before, and above all, how we were financing the trip. We explained everything and also offered to show everything, the booking for the first accommodation, the bank statements, return flight tickets. The officer wasn't interested at all and sent them right to the interrogation room. Now, on the show, I've been critical of some of the fact-checking that has been done recently, because a lot of the fact-checking that has been done recently has been strictly overly pedantic, like saying, Project 2025, for example. It said Project 2025, would do certain things when it comes to like NOAA. Like if you do what Project 2025 wants to do, then you would kill the NOAA. And then people were reporting, if Donald Trump gets elected and we implement the Project 2025, the NOAA will go away. And then Snopes or other fact checkers will be like, well, that's not what it says. Well, that's not what it says, but it says things that could lead reasonable people to have the conclusion that if you do all these things that Project 2025 wanted you to do, guess what? NOAA is going to go away. So the fact checking recently has not allowed people to use their minds and come to logical conclusions based on the facts that you have, based on what they're saying. If they're doing X, Y, and Z, you're going to get A, B, and C. Well, if A, B, and C is not listed, they're going to tell you you're wrong. So I've had my criticisms in the recent past about Snopes and fact check and Facebook fact checking or whatever. All the fact checkers are trying to be overly pedantic. I guess maybe they're trying to protect themselves from slander or libel lawsuits because, if they say that this thing is true, because if you do all these things and it leads to that, then they might say, oh, well, we didn't say this, so we're going to sue you, as we've seen from Donald Trump suing ABC or whatever, was it CBS or CNN? Whoever the hell Donald Trump is suing. He's probably suing a bunch of people. But no, this is yet another example of Border Patrol agents gone wild, doing actions that do not protect us at all. That 18 and 19-year-old, those two were not a threat to our security. Now, is it reasonable to determine whether or not they were? Fine, sure. But they were not a threat to our security. Petrova, the research scientist from Russia, is not a threat to our security. Hermosillo, the one in Arizona, with a person who's a U.S. citizen, who was born here, who, has learning disabilities, he's not a threat to our safety, our national security. But this administration is just, again, swatting flies with a mallet or swatting flies with a sledgehammer. And they're measuring twice before cutting, or they're not measuring twice before they cut. They're just cutting, and, sometimes that analogy, it's not always a cut, it's an action. They're taking actions without taking a measured approach and planning on those actions, and it ends up hurting more people than they should. Does the U.S. government have the ability to deport people? Yes. But all people are deserving of due process. It doesn't matter if you're a visitor here. It doesn't matter if you're traveling here. It doesn't matter if you are a undocumented migrant here. It doesn't matter if you're working at a farm for substandard wages. It doesn't matter if you completely crossed the border illegally and committed 10 crimes. None of that matters when it comes to if people get due process. The only people who don't get due process are the people with diplomatic immunity, because there's no process to be due, to mix up the words, I guess. But yeah, this administration is taking actions that is harming individuals who do not need to be harmed. And in the case of Petrova, they're harming many, many, many more people than that, because there are many, many people who will benefit from this research. And if they kick her out, those people are going to not get the benefits, and as such, needless deaths will happen. Of course, it's not the first needless deaths that happened. Donald Trump's mismanagement of COVID showed many examples. Hundreds of thousands of needless deaths took place during the COVID-19 pandemic, simply because Donald Trump mishandled the response. So we all know that Donald Trump doesn't care about lives. He doesn't care about people, especially these people. And the conservatives who are being apologists for him are more than willing to spread the lie that individuals who are not citizens aren't afforded due process, when the Constitution is clear on what rights citizens only get, and what rights everyone else has. And if it doesn't strictly limit it to citizens, guess what? It says persons or people or some other way of wording it so that it covers everybody. But, Donald Trump, after the 2016 Nevada primary, did say that he loved the poorly educated. So what you going to do, right? You have to stand up. You have to fight against this BS. Anyway, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think that these deportations are reasonable? Do you think that they're unreasonable? Whether or not you agree with me or disagree with me, leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. Unless you're a Nazi, have a good day. Let's head back into the chat and see. To DM News, a German news agency reported the entire incident. Yes, Snopes, I think, cited some of the things from there. Yes, they were detained. Exactly. They were not just simply denied entry. Hey, it's Suzanne. Good to see you, Suzanne. Thank you for joining. Impeccable Living. I missed Impeccable Living coming in.
Oh, my.
How can that happen? Good to see you, my friend. What else? Who else have I missed coming through as I was ranting about stuff? Oh, then there'll be more rants to come. I guarantee you. Let's see. Let's just scroll on through just to make sure I didn't miss anything. See, Jeff, the entire town water shut off yesterday until this morning. Be right back. I just want to wash my hands because I can now. But I will take a leak first because I can. Hilarious. Josh is here. Good to see you, Josh. Thank you for joining as well. Yes, better late than never. Steve, big hug. Yeah, man, it's like that Trump guy had F all but BS. I find it really effing difficult to accept he was voted in. The peeps I've chatted with around here, how I was so sure. Yeah, it's because of sexism and racism. That's why he was able to win again, because people were not going to vote. There were enough people who were not going to vote for a woman, and there are people who are not going to vote for a black woman specifically. And then there are other people, of course, who believe that both parties are the same, man. Both parties are the same. And they're not, because, they thought that, because Biden wasn't quick enough in dealing with the Israel-Hamas issue and how Israel was inappropriately responding to 10/7, they felt that it was necessary and proper to reject Vice President Harris and instead even vote for Donald Trump, even though they knew Trump was anti-Muslim, and their opinion, at least the stated opinion of several that went on the news, were basically like, maybe America needs to feel the pain to realize how bad they're being. But I really, really hope that the people who said that are the ones who suffer the pain first. Simple as that. Anyway. Big hook. Christopher Titus is doing a full workup with the group that is convinced that the election was stolen. It's looking like write-in ballots and the tabulators were effed with. Very well may be, and I would definitely look forward into doing that. Yeah, hey, what about Palestine people? How's that working out? Exactly. It's not working out because now Donald Trump wants to raise Gaza, kick out all of the Palestinians who live in Gaza, and then make a frickin' Monaco on the Mediterranean or whatever. Ugh, it's terrible. Hey, Molly, good to see you as well. Thank you for joining us. So yeah, that's absurd, ridiculous stuff going on with this administration. But there's more. But wait, there's more. Let's go ahead and start recording again. During the COVID-19 pandemic, collections were stopped on student loans. And for 5 years, people who were in default from student loans were not being sent to collections. Well, now that's going to change because the Trump administration, has been announced many places. This is on NPR's website to resume collections on student loan borrowers in default. After a 5-year hiatus, the Department of Education says it will begin resuming collections on defaulted student loans on May 5th, day after Star Wars Day. On Cinco de Mayo. Is that a purposeful too? Is it purposeful that they're doing it on Cinco de Mayo? Is that like another attack, on the whole Mexico thing? Are they also going to, do a whole tribute to the Gulf of whatever they want to call it? It's ridiculous. Of the more than 42.7 million student loan borrowers in the USA who owe a collective of $1.6 trillion, the department says that more than 5 million have not made a payment in the last year. Now, 5 million have not made a payment. Here's my question on that, because you have to look at these numbers. Does that 5 million mean people who have not made a payment who were supposed to make a payment? Or do those 5 million include people who are on forbearance? Because I still have my student loans. They're in forbearance currently. They're in administrative forbearance, and I think they're supposed to be that way into October, I think, unless the Trump administration changes that on, the Mohila loans. Who knows? But yeah, that's an important question to ask. Of the 5 million who've not made a payment in the last year, are those people who are defaulting, who were supposed to make payments, who didn't? Or are those people who were under the SAVE plan and then had the last administration, the Biden administration, say, hey, because we're dealing with this court issues, dealing with the SAVE plan, we're going to put everybody into administrative forbearance until this whole thing works itself out. So that's an important question that NPR, at least, doesn't seem to answer. According to Linda McMahon, heel from the WWE, who was once, I don't know if cuckolded would be the right word, I think the right word might be cuck-queened on national television when she was supposedly stuck in a wheelchair, not able to do anything, and forced to watch her husband make out with another wrestler. Yeah, that's the person who is currently in charge of the Department of Education. The person whose degree is only in French. The person who lied about having a degree in education when she was appointed to some education board up in Connecticut. I think that's where they live. Yeah, that person is in charge of the Department of Education. And I didn't think that you could potentially get anybody worse than Betsy DeVos. We have in Linda McMahon. This is absurd. The American taxpayers will no longer be forced to serve as collateral for irresponsible student loan policies. Well, the irresponsible student loan policies come from the administration, not from the borrowers, and you're punishing the borrowers for what's been going on. How's that going to help the economy? How is that going to help the economy? And if people can't afford to pay their debts, like if people are they're not defaulting because they're choosing not to. They're defaulting because, they can't afford to pay it. So you're punishing them for being poor, which is not surprising coming from the Trump administration. But, it's not like these people are making the active choice to not pay. The department says they'll begin notifying borrowers who are in default via email over the next 2 weeks, blah, blah, blah. Then on May 5th, the department will begin referring borrowers who remain in default to a collections program run by the Treasury Department. This could not come at a worse time for millions of Americans, says Aisa Conchola Banez, policy director for Student Borrower Protection Center, nonprofit group that aims to reduce student debt. Those borrowers, she said, are already finding themselves having to navigate such incredible economic uncertainty over the last few months. She also points to the fact that older borrowers tend to face the greatest struggles in repaying the loans. Nearly 40% of federal borrowers over the age of 65 were in default on their student loans, according to a 2017 report from the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. These are older folks who are on fixed incomes. When borrowers fall behind, their credit scores take a hit, making it harder to qualify for more credit on other loans, blah, blah, blah. So, and here's the thing. If the people are in default, if they're defaulting on their loans because they can't afford to pay the loans, and now you're going to spend money, time, effort, manpower, whatever, on collecting debts from people who owe it, but who can't afford it, and you're not going to get anything, like squeezing, blood from a stone or whatever. How is that efficient? We're supposedly having the Department of Governmental Efficiency. How is that efficient at all? It's not. It's not efficient. And you're screwing over these people. Furthermore, Donald Trump, they took away, at least for a little bit, the ability to have income-based repayment. And as we discussed in this program before, when you sign the application for your federal student loans, and when you sign the promissory note for your federal student loans, it includes multiple things, including the fact that you have the right, in the rights and responsibilities section, you have certain responsibilities, and I'm not saying that people don't have responsibilities to pay on their debts. They do, according to the terms of their loan. And according to the terms of the loan, they also have the right to have income-based repayment plans, of which the SAFE plan was one, of which there are other plans as well that are listed. The SAFE plans wasn't listed on mine, but it's listed on other ones. And also, was it 10% is what what we talked about the last time, where 10% of somebody's discretionary income can be used, only that can be used as student loan repayments. That being said, guess what? What if they change the formula on how you determine discretionary income? They could change the formula and make it even worse for the borrowers, and then they want to up it to at least, I think, 12.5% of your discretionary income. So if they increase what is considered discretionary income, and then also make it that it's 12.5%, you're going to murder these people financially. It's going to harm these people. It's going to harm me. But, I'm not just worried about me because I'm not a Republican. Republicans tend to worry about only themselves. I'd like to worry about other people too. But this issue just so happens to also affect me and many other people that I know. Let's see. To get another article, the change will affect 5.3 million borrowers who had a default before the pandemic. According to the Education Department, technically a borrower is considered in default when they fail to make a loan payment for at least 270 days. I'm assuming that they're not including if you're in forbearance or deferment. Because if you're in forbearance or deferment, you don't make payments. Yet, you're not in default because you're following the terms of your loan contract, because the loan contract that you sign also includes the ability to be in forbearance and deferment, based on several criteria, based on what kind of deferment you're going for versus what kind of forbearance you're going for, etc. Let's see. Most borrowers, they're not in danger of default today, but in 5 months they could be, says Scott Buchanan, executive director of nonprofit trade group Student Loan Servicing Alliance. So taking action today is pretty important. In a press release on Monday, the Education Department said it will send notices of wage garnishment, seizing up to 15% of a borrower's disposable income. 15% of disposable income later this summer. In the meantime, it is urging borrowers in default to start making monthly payments or enroll in an income-driven repayment plan. But they took away the ability to enroll in an income-based repayment plan, and they took away the SAVE plan on top of that, based on questionable legal logic. Because when we went over the ruling that overturned that, if you remember, we went over the ruling from the Supreme Court that said, the states have standing to bring this case in the first place. Why do they have standing to bring the case in the first place? Because Missouri has MOHELA, M-O being Missouri. So Missouri has MOHELA, which is not officially run by the government. It's like a side project. It's a separate entity from the government. It's responsible for taking care of its own lawsuits, but because it was created by the government, that's the argument that was used to try and grant them standing. And the Supreme Court, who usually is very strict about standing, basically said that because MOHELA would lose money if loans were forgiven, that they have the right to sue, which is basically saying that these states are entitled to our tax dollars. Because if you're servicing a loan and that loan is in forbearance or deferment, that's the amount of money that you're paying that servicer to service that loan, even if it's in forbearance and deferment, comes from our tax dollars, because it can't come from the payments, because guess what? They're not making payments because they're in deferment or forbearance. So the whole idea as to why they had standing shouldn't have held water. They should have been kicked out, and the SAVE plan should have been allowed to continue. But it wasn't. Why? Because the Supreme Court is an activist conservative Supreme Court who's more than willing to go against anything that Biden did and support most of the things that Donald Trump wants. And now they're going to be taking away 15% of discretionary income taken away from the wages of individuals. Yeah, if that happens to me, I'm screwed. I am totally screwed. Because they're not following the rules. They're violating the terms of my contract. If they violate the terms of a contract, any student, any former student, anybody who currently owns student loan debt, who currently owes student loan debt, like, what are we supposed to do? Because if they violate the terms of the contract, that should make the contract null and void, right? But how are you going to get that done? You're going to need courts to basically say, you violated terms of the contract. So the court would either then have to reinstate the terms of the contract, or basically say, hey, there's no meeting of the minds here. So there should be no loan. Anyway, it's absurd. This is going to hurt many, many, many working class people. This is going to hurt many, many older people above the age of 60, retired people who still hold student loan debt. It's going to harm people across the board. While we're already suffering, dealing with, higher prices, tariffs that we have to pay for, even though Trump says that we don't, we do. Increasing prices on goods and services that we now have to pay. On top of the fact that now we're going to have to pay, have 15% of our wages garnished? Yeah, screw that. These people are out to get all of us. And why people still continue to support this president is beyond me, except for the fact that they're just unwilling to admit that they made a mistake, or they won't admit that they made a mistake until it affects them. And even then, there was a case of somebody, their wife was a teacher who was getting deported, and he was like, I voted for you, Mr. President, and I voted for you, and even though I voted for you, you're deporting my wife, so I'm asking you to reconsider deporting my wife. Why? Your wife should be the one deported first. Because you voted for this crap. You voted for it. You should have to suffer from it. And I want more Trump supporters to suffer during this. I mean, I don't want anybody to suffer, but if people are going to have to suffer, it needs to be Trump supporters first. They need to know, they need to enter the find out phase. Because not enough Trump supporters are in the find out phase yet. And it's unfortunate that the way things are going, when some people get to the find out phase, it's going to be too late. Remember 1930s Germany. People didn't start finding out until it was too late. And people say, oh, you're being hyperbolic. You're not being serious, having serious discussions. No, screw that. I've learned enough about the Holocaust during the course of my educational career that I know I can see the build up to Nazism as it's happening. And I've been calling this crap out since 2016. But anyway, do you agree with Donald Trump and his actions to go into... And look, before I actually go into the whole video ending, let me just say this. Again, just repeating this one more time for the idiot MAGA folks who probably didn't take the time to watch this, 15 some odd minute long video as it gets produced and uploaded. You're not going to listen. You're not going to listen to anything I say. You're not going to listen to the fact that, or you probably did not listen to the fact that when you sign a student loan promissory note with the federal government, and when you sign the application, you have the right to an income-based repayment. You have the right to have your, follow the terms of your loan, which also includes loan forgiveness. So you would say, pay off your loans, pay off your loans. All right, I'll work on paying off my loans, but under the terms that I signed. And the terms that I signed include that if I make so many payments over the course of my, life, then the rest of my loan gets forgiven. And conservatives, you might not like that. Change the policy for future borrowers. Don't do a bait and switch on us. Furthermore, if you're going to sit here and you're going to tell us, oh, you should pay back your debts, fuck you. 100%. Go F yourselves. Right away. Why? Guess why? Because you voted for somebody who enriched himself, who made himself wealthier off of the backs of other people by abusing the bankruptcy courts. He abused bankruptcy with his businesses to get out of paying debts after cashing out all the money from the corporations and giving himself lots of money. He cashed out of the casinos. He made himself rich and then said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going into bankruptcy. Let the other people deal with that debt. I don't have to deal with it anymore because I'm going to abuse bankruptcies. So you do not have the moral authority to tell student loan borrowers that they have to repay their debts while still supporting Donald Trump, while having voted for Donald Trump probably 3 times. Because you voted for somebody who didn't repay his debts. So screw that and screw you. What do you think? Agree? Disagree with me? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. And unless you support screwing over student loan borrowers and or are a Nazi, have a good day. That should have been under this as well, probably. But, who knows? Let's scroll. We got Dean Baker in the chat. Good to see you. Josh, are they trying to do the repayment forgiveness program? Well, during the pandemic, people were just, I think, starting to hit the income-based repayment threshold. Let me see when that started real quick. Let me just, not income-based repayment, but when did the public service loan forgiveness start? Hey, I love when it completes it for me. The public service loan forgiveness program was established on October 1st, 2007. So Congress created the public service loan forgiveness. This should be recorded as well. Good question from the chat. Are they trying to undo the repayment forgiveness program? So here's the thing. The public service loan forgiveness program was established on October 1st, 2007 by Congress during the College Cost Reduction and Access Act of 2007. According to that plan, according to that legislation, if you work for a public service, like work for a nonprofit, if you work for government, etc., work for those types of jobs, that are covered by the legislation, instead of having to make the payments over 20, 25, 30 years before having your student loan debt forgiven, if you opt in to work for a not-for-profit, business or for government or whatever, and as such, typically you're accepting less money than you would take otherwise by working in the private sector, you're taking a financial hit. So they're giving the benefit to those people of, oh, well, you decided to be a teacher, you got this debt, you work for 10 years, here you go, here is, your loans are being paid off. Now, you have to make 10 years of payments when you do that. So 10 plus 2007 is 2017. So the first set of people who would benefit from the public service loan forgiveness program would have started doing it under the Trump administration. And it was reported that 99% of all of the applications to have their debt forgiven under the public service loan forgiveness were rejected by the Betsy DeVos Department of Education, which is under, the Trump administration. So are they trying to undo it? Yes, absolutely. And and they don't feel that they have to even follow the law, because the law states that they can get it done after 10 years, and then 10 years later, they rejected them all, or most of them, 99% of them. I think that's the number. I think that's an accurate number. So yeah, they are absolutely trying to dispense with the public service loan forgiveness program. And we're probably going to see a lot more people as they start hitting not just the 10-year program, but once that, now people are probably going to start hitting the 20 years, 25, 30 years, whatever their loan forgiveness agreement is in their student loan, and you're probably going to see more of those people having their loans their loan forgiveness denied, even though it's included as part of the law. Furthermore, there's also challenges by Republicans in general over certain forms of income-based repayment plans, because they say that I think one or two of them were created by Congress, but other ones weren't, and as such aren't legal, even though power was delegated from Congress to the Department of Education to come up with these plans or whatever to make better plans, because let the experts in education make the plans for dealing with student loans instead of having it come from Congress. But we don't have experts in the Department of Education anymore. We have Linda frickin' McMahon. So, yeah, that's that in a nutshell. Pain in my ass. What else? Let me go ahead and take a brief drink of water. I think I said hello to Dean, but if I didn't, hi Dean. Good to see you. Let's see. Suzanne, Randy Rhodes' program today retired due to health reasons. I'll miss her. We did talk about that, I think, on Monday. I know she was having health issues. I thought there was discussion of her waiting to see what was going on, but it is definitely sad to see her go. That is a vacuum that needs to be filled urgently, because we need more big names out there, and Randy Rhodes is a big name. We need more big names out there, and then we need people who are the smaller names to be elevated up and fill any, vacuums that are created by people who retire or anything else. So, not just talking about me, but there are plenty of left-leaning, liberal, progressive, leftist-type programs that are out there that could be elevated and should be elevated, and we need people to make the arguments that these other people have been making for a while now. So, let's see. We already got to that. Found today I have dry eye, makes it hard to type on a phone. Sorry about your dry eye. Let's see. Big hook. My eyes are not reliable with the tiny text of smartphones. I have found myself that recently, I don't have bifocals. And I could have the progressive lenses, but I chose not to the last time when I got glasses. But if I were to take my glasses off right here, everything on my computer screen that's less than a yard away is completely blurry. I can't see it. So I absolutely have to wear my glasses to be able to see what's going on there. Now, if I'm playing if I'm looking at things on my phone, in my hand, or if I'm playing the Nintendo Switch or whatever, if I'm playing that, I don't wear glasses, because when things are up close, I don't need them. I don't need my glasses to read. And in fact, when things are up close and I have my glasses on, it becomes difficult to read, so I have to take the glasses off. So often I'll be, doing things if I go to a restaurant or whatever, I'll have to I'll take off my glasses to be able to read the menu, and then put on the glasses to be able to look at the waiter and everybody else around me. So yeah. Oh, let's see. I've been talking a lot with my hands today. I think even more so than normal. Although I know I do emote with my hands a lot, so I do understand that. Let's see. I Chuck Schumer for arm length or less in glasses. What? Dean Baker, have you ever opened the oven and got your eyeball steamed up? That's scary as. That's crazy. See, I got some skinny lenses for distance because I can look under. I'm nearsighted. I'm thinking about getting the progressive lenses next time. I am thinking about getting the progressive lenses next time, although I do have a friend who got them as well, and he was having problems with them. So, let's see. They will get to the finance page, says Alton. I'll tell them you're going to have TDS, Trump derailment system, when they crash head on to the FAFO train. Exactly. Let's see, 25 years of service to the truth doctrine from Randy Rhodes. Yes. I also wish Randy Rhodes the best. I don't know if I ever called in. I know I listened to her a good bunch beforehand. For a second I'm sitting there what? 250 kilo progressives taking getting used to. I was talking about political progressives. No, that's the lenses. Anyway, Jeff Curry, Josh, the bass player for Hanger Hate, did a parody video being drunk Bob Ross. That's funny. I don't think I laugh out loud. I thought the same thing. And you even typed it. I don't think I'm going to record this one. This is probably too short. The federal government terminated 2 grants for African American history and culture awarded to the Whitney Plantation, a museum aimed at memorializing slavery, as the Trump administration works to strip federal funding from arts and cultural institutions. It's not just arts and cultural institutions that he's trying to take money away from. He's also doing this because that particular plantation, most of the plantations are problematic. Ashley Rogers, the executive director of the Whitney Plantation, told Variant News, "These grants like ours are going to small museums who are doing good work in communities, and to think of the history of African Americans in the South, the history of slavery, does not align with the priorities of the United States is very concerning. Together, the grants to the Whitney Plantation total almost $350,000 and were set to be completed in June. Most of one grant has already been dispersed, so the termination has no real effect on the museum, but the museum and 2 of its grant partners stand to lose about $55,000 from the other award, which helped fund an exhibition about how enslaved people performed acts of resistance on plantations." That's why I think the grant's going away, because they don't want people learning about, how slavers resist, how the enslaved resisted, mind you, not the slavers, but the enslaved. And that's one of the things that this particular plantation was doing a good job. Apparently other plantations are not as good about that and will just, kind of put up the whole antebellum type, how great it was to live here in the South and to live on the plantation and what happened on whereas the Whitney Plantation is actually teaching this is how horrible it was for slaves in the South. That's what needs to be taught. But they don't want that because they want us to learn about American exceptionalism. We need to learn about how exceptional we were. We were exceptionally racist. We were exceptionally cruel, exceptionally mean. Right? So, anyway, it's ridiculous. It's one of the many things that I decided I was going to talk about. I'm actually surprised I've gotten through most of these topics. So let's turn this off for a second. So if we happen to, when we make this bigger, I can resume it. There we go. That's better. But yeah, I'm surprised that I've made it through this many topics already, because there's a bunch of topics that I wanted to talk about today, and I've hit a few of them pretty quickly, which is good. Let's see. All right, let's start recording this for a second. I've already said on this podcast that Donald Trump has shown his weakness as president. He is a weak president when it comes to many things. Like the El Salvador thing, that, we can't ask, they have to decide to send this person back to us. We can't force them to take it. Of course you can. You can, of course, force them to do it because you're paying them for a service. So you could say, we're not going to pay for this service anymore if you don't send us back this person that we accidentally deported. The administrative error. But they won't fix it. Anyway, so Donald Trump was in the White House, and he's talking about how tariffs with China will come down substantially.
Secretary Dustin suggested that with tariff rates as high as they are now, it's effectively an embargo of trade between the United States and China. Do you see it that way?
That's true. 145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It's not going to be that high. It got up to there. We were talking about fentanyl, where...
Now, what the hell is fentanyl? Like, it sounds like it's not fentanyl. No, he says fentanyl. It's fentanyl. Fentanyl is like what, Tylenol? Is that what he's trying to do? Anyway, he's a dumbass. Let's continue.
Various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high.
And what level do you think it'll come down to if you haven't?
It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero.
So I won't give you an answer on what of what it's going to come down to, of how much lower than 145% we'll be seeing. But it's not zero, but he can't tell you why. Because, again, this is an administration that flies by the seat of its pants, that swats flies with a hammer, or swats flies with a sledgehammer, and they don't measure twice before cutting. So this administration just says, we're going to do this today. It sounds good. Let's try it.
It used to be zero. We were just destroyed. China was taking us for a ride and just not going to have It's not going to happen. We're going to be very good to China, have a great relationship with President Xi, but they would make...
China has taken us for a ride, and they're terrible, but we'll have a great relationship with them. I like President Xi, but they're still terrible, and they treated us horribly, but I love President Xi, and we'll have great things with China, even though we won't. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, you don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
Billions and billions and billions of dollars.
$1 billion.
A year, and they would build their military out of the United States and what they made, so that won't happen. But they're going to do very well, and I think they're going to be happy, and I think we're going to...
They built their military, but they're going to do very well, but I don't like them when they did well, but now they're going to do well. What? What the fuck are you talking about, dude?
Live together very happily, and...
We're going to live together, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Ideally work together. So I think it's going to work out very well. But no, it's at 145%. It will not be anywhere near that number.
It will not be anywhere near that number. It won't be there at all. But this just goes to show that Donald Trump is absolutely and 100% weak when it comes to his presidency. What did he get from China? He claims that he was doing the 145% tariff. Why? Because he wanted to get things from other countries. He wanted to influence them to change their trade policies. Has China changed its trade policies? No, it hasn't. But Donald Trump's still reducing it anyway. He'll never admit that he was wrong about putting a 145% tariff on China. He'll never admit that he was wrong about anything. But, you know, he's weak because he tried to do something and it failed. And he's just giving in to the people who he said took us for a ride. You're a weak president, Donald Trump. You're a weak president, Donald Trump. Anyway, so do you think Donald Trump is a weakling for doing this? Do you support him regardless because you're a Donald Trump sycophant who will bend over backwards or forwards however he wants you to bend over for him? Leave your comments down below. If you agree with me, leave your comments down below as well. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe. Unless you're a Nazi, have a good day. I'm wondering if I say Nazi too much, if that's getting me throttled or shadow banned on YouTube. I wonder if that's why we see less people coming in sometimes. I don't know. Hey, Lisa, good to see you. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you. A Republican mayor in California wants to give the unhoused all of the fentanyl they want. I hadn't heard that one before. That's interesting. Yeah, skipping down the lane, hand in hand. And he's going bald. Does he paint his bald spot? Who knows? We also have Ron DeSantis facing growing storm over Hope, Florida controversy. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is facing backlash in his state over allegations involving an organization linked to his wife. The controversy concerns a $10 million payment to the Hope Florida Foundation, which is tied to First Lady Casey DeSantis and her welfare assistance program, Hope Florida, and has led to criticism from some state House Republicans. Interesting. House Republicans are going after him. Critics argue that this money was inappropriately used to help campaign against the ballot measure that would have legalized recreational marijuana in the state last November. That money, critics say, was part of a settlement agreement. It keeps jumping on me. The money, critics say, was part of a settlement agreement involving the state's largest Medicaid contractor. According to them, a chunk of that settlement, all of which was intended to be returned to the state and federal coffers, was sent to Hope Florida Foundation and eventually ended up in the hands of political groups that campaigned against the ballot measure. DeSantis has denied the allegations, but Tuesday, Florida media obtained a draft of an agreement that seemed to contradict the governor, a development that threatens to raise pressure on him as the DeSantis' maul their next steps in the coming years. It's certainly not good for the first family. One Florida Republican operative said, I think there's a greater impact on her ability to run for governor more than anything else. Is she really going to run for governor after he retires? The controversy surrounding the Hope Florida Foundation goes back to last year when the state of Florida discovered it was owed $67 million in a settlement with the Sedan Corporation after the state was overbilled for Medicaid. The draft agreement obtained by the media suggested $10 million of that money was funneled through the charity connected to the organization, founded and promoted by Casey DeSantis, and eventually sent two nonprofit groups involved in the campaign against the ballot measure. One of those groups gave money to a PAC tied to James Uthmayer, the governor's then chief of staff. This served to contradict the DeSantis administration's insistence that the $10 million given to the nonprofit groups was separate from the money received as part of the settlement. In a statement to the Florida media, Governor DeSantis spokesperson Brian Griffin noted the negotiations were handled by the Agency for Health Care Administration. Yada, yada, yada. The full article, they say, falsely projects the plaintiff's attorney's aspirational assessment of the facts of the case. The shady spin is why the reporter was so cagey when reaching out in the story and wouldn't be upfront. The controversy sparked anger from members of DeSantis' own party, including former Matt Gaetz, former Rep. Matt Gaetz, who suggested the Florida State House Republicans could move to impeach Uthmayer, now the state attorney general, over the handling of the money amid campaign against Amendment 3, the marijuana-related ballot measure. Gaetz and many Florida Republicans were opposed to Amendment 3 last year. DeSantis' critics, include a number of state House Republicans, had maintained prior to Tuesday that the money sent to the nonprofits was Medicaid money. And here's the thing. He's trying to say that the money is not fungible. Like they're trying to make the argument that, that money come from here, money come from there, two different things. But that's not what the argument they make normally. The argument that they make normally is that money is fungible, that you could, do things like, get Medicaid money from Planned Parenthood to cover the services that they provide that have nothing to do with abortions, or might have to do with, preventing pregnancies and making sure that every pregnancy is a planned pregnancy. But then when Planned Parenthood, their political action committee, fights abortion laws, then the conservatives, Republicans will say, well, the Medicaid money that's going to Planned Parenthood to treat people with diseases or conditions or whatever, that money is then winding up going to pay for pro-choice political activities. Well, no, it's not. But if you're going to make that argument, you then have to also make the argument here that the money that goes to this Hope Florida organization is also fungible, and you can actually get the money, you can direct Medicaid money into political campaigns as well. You can't have it both ways. But of course, that's what Republicans want to do. They want to have it both ways. Now, Florida, again, the Medicaid regulator offers explanation of the scrutinized $10 million, but again, why would we believe them? I have no reason to believe them. See, 9:15 or 15 minutes after 9 o'clock Central Time, 10 o'clock Eastern. Again, thank you everybody else for watching, for joining in on the show. As Aaron has posted, you can become a Liberal Dan Radio patron by going to patreon.com/liberaldan or patreon.liberaldan.com. Either way will get you there. You can support the show that way. You can support the show by going and you could buy me a cider. You could, if you go to liberaldan.com and click the Buy Me a Cider button, it will, come up on the screen, probably. It should. And then you could also Venmo, Liberal Dan. You could buy super chats, super stickers. You can gift subscriptions on Twitch. You can gift memberships on YouTube. All that good stuff. You could buy bits on Twitch. And if you're a member of Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. You just have to repeat it and do it every month. So there's also the other thing, I'll put the link in the chat, is the fact that on my nerdydan.com site, I do have and I'm still having, there's like 7 or 8 days left in the campaign on the Match Masters or whatever game that I've been promoting over the last month. If you sit there and you play it, I don't think you're going to get to the highest levels, but if you get to 3,800, the points of how you can help the show with it is all at that link. But if you were going to spend money on a super chat or a super sticker, a lot of times it's better to download the game and then buy something with the game in the game, because I get more money than what you pay. Like I might get, $20 after you give 10 or 11 or something like that. Or you pay for something that's 10 or 11 bucks. And all those rules are on the website. I don't have them all devoted to memory, but it's another great way to support the show. And we'll probably be doing other applications, other games once this campaign is over. But so far, with the exception of the money that they give me to reimburse me for costs to buy things in game to show my users that you could do it, I think so far I've made about $250 on it, which is nice, but it could be much higher. But anyway, if you don't like games, don't worry about it. But if you do, give it a try, download it. And if you were thinking about like buying a super chat, super sticker, buying a membership for 1 month, you might be better off, or you might get more bang for your buck just by making a purchase of the game. And all the details are on nerdydan.com. So, let's put this over here because I wanted to do this in a specific order. There we go. Because we want to record this one too. See, I thumbs up in chat because that's what I can do, and I appreciate that, Josh. You can constantly hit those buttons and help the algorithms, because Algor needs more rhythm. See, big hook. The fact that Republicans are never held accountable except by elections is where all this trouble comes from. Crimes pays as a politician and as billionaires oligarchy who constructs the government. Exactly. Casey DeSantis equal Jackie Foe. What? Oh, Jackie Foe. Nice. I like that. Big hook. Nazi is never overused when referring to Trump. Hitler was his idol. Exactly. And we're going to go into that more in a second. So, on Monday's program, we did discuss the issue of RFK Jr. And now we want to talk more on RFK Jr. and his idiocy when it comes to autism. Now, if you remember last time, one of the things we spoke about was the fact that RFK Jr. has rejected the idea out of hand completely that the increase in per capita autism diagnoses has nothing. He rejected that he believes that has nothing to do with the fact that we can better diagnose things, and that we've increased what we call autism. For example, Asperger's back in the day was not labeled as autism. Now it is. And we usually don't use the word Asperger's anymore. But that's what used to happen. It used to be, if you didn't have this, you had that, and it was treated as two separate things, and now they're under the whole umbrella, the whole spectrum. That's why it's a spectrum. RFK Jr. has also refused to understand the idea that the majority of the increase per capita of autism cases in this country are mild. These are cases that would not have been caught under the old ways of diagnosing whether or not somebody had autism or not, whether or not somebody was autistic. So we have better abilities to diagnose. Now, am I going to reject out of hand completely that there are environmental factors that come into play for some people or whatever? No, I'm going to let the science do the science. We're going to let the scientists do their job, and if the scientists do determine that there are factors that might increase the likelihood of somebody having an autism diagnosis, then great, let's look into that. However, when we all know that when RFK Jr. is talking about the external factors or environmental factors, what he's talking about is the fact that he thinks that autism is caused by vaccines. And so he wants to try and prove that so that he could be right. And of course, I have no reason to believe anything that comes out of this administration anyway. So even if he said, oh, there's this report, here it is, I would have no reason to believe. And I would more rather trust the people who are outside of the government who are going to be critical and look at this with a critical lens and look at this with an unbiased lens. Look at this in a way that a scientist would look at it. But RFK Jr. is not a scientist. RFK Jr. doesn't know what the hell he's talking about when it comes to these issues. But let's just roll back a second, because as Big Hook said in the chat, it's never wrong to compare Trump and Hitler. And I've been doing it since 2016, and people called me wacko nuts back then. And as time goes on, I'm proven to be right and more right each and every time. But according to the Holocaust Museum's Holocaust Encyclopedia, registration of children with disabilities. Let's pull this up. German officials ordered the registration of all newborns babies and children under 3 years of age who showed signs of severe mental or physical disabilities. This order highlighted the participation of midwives. They were paid a small sum for each infant they reported. Parents were encouraged to surrender their children with disabilities to the care of the state-run residential clinics. Their medical staff secretly murdered the children by starvation or lethal injection. As German policymakers shifted the country's economy into a war footing, they began to view people with disabilities as a financial as well as genetic burden. The so-called racial hygiene politics of Nazi Germany took a radical turn, portrayed falsely in propaganda as mercy deaths. The secret so-called euthanasia program soon expanded to include adults with disabilities as well. Now, there's one thing, I guess, that might be a little different between what the Nazis did and what he's doing, is that he is absolutely denying genetic components as it pertains to autism. He is denying that there's any effect, because he even said genetics don't cause epidemics. Well, you know, yes, more, but neither does your stupidity. Your stupidity doesn't cause academics, right? It doesn't cause epidemics. Here's the thing. Again, we have better means to determine whether or not somebody is diagnosed with autism or not. We have better means of explaining that. And we're including more in that group. It's very, very simple. And, but I mean, somebody working for the Trump administration, I would expect them to not understand this, because Donald Trump seems to think that if you test people for COVID, for example, you get more cases, i.e. that the testing for COVID makes people sick with COVID. Anybody who believes that is an idiot. Anybody who believes that is a dumbass. Plain and simple. So, are they going to do the same thing with autism now? Are they going to come out with the fact that, the diagnosing of people for autism is causing the autism? Are they going to pull that crap out of their ass? I don't know. But again, he's firmly saying that it's not a genetic component, but that doesn't stop the problem here with the creation of this autism registry, because the autism registry is basically going to perform a similar task to what German officials did in 1939, August 18th, 1939. Again, when we start talking about the Nazi Party in Germany during the early 19th or 20th century, when we start talking about them, we're talking about, like, again, the 1930s Nazis, because we don't want to get to the 1940s Nazis. We want to keep ourselves from getting there, and the best way to do that is to remember our history and make sure it doesn't repeat itself. And under Robert F. Kennedy Jr.,
of vulnerability, you need an environmental toxin.
Meantime, advocacy groups and
I think I went too far with that one. When he was talking about, here's that about genes do not cause epidemics. There's that.
Environmental exposure. It has to be. Genes do not cause epidemics. They can provide a vulnerability. You need an environmental toxin.
Meantime,
says who? Says you? You're not a doctor. You're not a scientist. I have no reason to trust you and your beliefs over what happens and how genetics plays a part in autism. And are there people who might have had a circumstance that might give them something that puts them under the autism spectrum because of something external to their body? Maybe. I'm more than willing to accept that could be a possibility in some cases. But in many, many other cases, because maybe some people got injured from some sort of environmental toxin. Whatever, but we know when he says environmental toxin, we know what he's talking about. He's talking about mercury in vaccines. But again, I'm not going to discount out of hand the possibility that there could be some environmental factors when it comes down to it, but I want to let the scientists determine that for themselves. I'm not going to direct the scientists to say, we reject all possibilities except for the one that we like, because that's not how you do science. But this stuff is dangerous. Again, he is a dangerous individual. His lack of understanding of how things work when it comes to science, when it comes to medicine, when it comes to autism, is dangerous because he's in charge of the whole damn thing. And What's worse is that, maybe he's just an idiot. Or maybe it's Maybelline. No, maybe he's just an idiot who doesn't understand how science works and is allowing himself to go down completely ridiculous, wrong rabbit holes. And the hole he went down wasn't a rabbit hole, but it was like a water well or something. It wasn't really a rabbit hole. But what would be worse is if he's knowingly doing this and purposely misleading the public into saying, oh, there's no genetic component, there's no this, there's no that, just so we can get a registry of all of the people who have a diagnosis of autism or being diagnosed as being on the spectrum, while knowing that what he's telling us is wrong. Because if he's knowingly and willingly misleading us on this just to create this registry, then that's an even bigger problem, because then that's showing a purposeful willingness to act just like the Nazis. And we here at Liberal Dan Radio talk from the left. That's right. Me, myself, and the people who watch all the time. We reject that. We don't want that. We don't want what he does. We understand science. We accept science. But anyway, what do you think? Do you agree with RFK Jr. that we, it's only environmental factors? It's not, anything having to do with, your genetics. It's not genetics causing it. That there's no way to determine, that some of this or most of this increase in per capita autism cases are happening because of how we've diagnosed and how we've changed the diagnoses. I mean, we've changed how we diagnose cancer, and we're catching cancer earlier. We're saving more people from cancer because we have better diagnoses. We're dealing with, we're catching other conditions better. If you had better testing for COVID-19 during the COVID-19 pandemic, guess what? You're going to have better results and get the real picture of how many people were infected with COVID versus how many were not. Doesn't create the cases, just reveals the cases. Well, that's what we're doing with autism. We have become better at revealing the cases. And again, what we talked about Monday was the fact that there are areas that have, higher ratios, that, 1 in 30 or even fewer people than that. Those places that are showing higher rates of autism are also places that, have better testing. So of course they're going to catch the cases. And again, the increase in cases on a per capita level are mostly the minor variants, mild variants. They're not the ones that he talks about that won't pay taxes and can't use the toilet or whatever. That's not where the increase is coming. The increase is coming in people who have mild cases of autism, who are functioning fully in day-to-day lives. They're just neurodivergent. And they have a different way of looking at things, a different way of interacting with people. And that's fine, and that's okay. And we need to, accommodate the people as they need accommodations in learning environments and other places. We need to help people with that. And you don't help people who are under the spectrum by completely ignoring the fact that our diagnostics are better these days. Anyway, you agree with me, disagree with me? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like, video, share, subscribe. And unless you're a Nazi, and if you support this, one of many examples of why you're supporting a Nazi, if you still support this and still supports Trump, unless you support all that, have a good day. It's just ridiculous. It's just so absurd. See, Lisa, I'm sure autism causes are multifactorial. Yeah, but he doesn't want to admit that. He wants to say that, it's just environmental. Because again, he wants to, he's anti-vax. He'll claim to not be anti-vax. He'll say that he just wants you to have a choice in vaccinations. But that's being anti-vax. Having a choice in vaccinations, having people who can take the vaccine, whose parents choose to not give them the vaccine, that harms other people. So if you put doubt in the minds of people as to the efficacy of vaccines or the harm that vaccines might cause to people, then people are going to take fewer vaccines. And then more people are going to get infected with things like, measles. And then we'll see measles outbreaks. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said something about the fact that you don't respond to measles outbreaks by, not doing anything or whatever. But yeah, you shouldn't have to respond to measles outbreaks because we should be having a fully vaccinated society so that measles outbreaks don't happen in the first place. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So if you wanted to be efficient, like they claim that they want to be, you would want to be able to have those better diagnostics. You would want to be able to, better understand how autism works and that more people had autism. Like back in the day, they say, oh, autism wasn't a thing back in the 30s. People didn't know about dinosaurs until the mid 1800s. Doesn't mean that they didn't exist. It just means we didn't know about them. That we didn't know about them doesn't disprove that they were there. But again, Donald Trump, after the 2016 Nevada primary, said he loved the poorly educated. And guess what? The poorly educated constantly try and prove, day in and day out, that they are worthy of his love. Right? Let's see. Krusty Gnome had a 3,000 cash meeting with her coke dealer. 3,000 in cash. At least 3,000 wasn't 10,000, because if he was walking around at 10,000 in cash, that would be stupid, because the federal agents who were in charge of, those things, if you happen to pass through someplace where you might have your stuff checked, if she was pulled over by a cop, for example, and found to have, 10,000 in cash in her purse, guess what? They'll take it from you and seize it from you and assume that you're a drug dealer. But yeah. You're putting Kristi Noem, what? In the head of some security function? And now she can't even have her own wealth secured, her own money secured? I'm not going to question why she had $3,000. I mean, maybe she was seeing a fentanyl dealer. Who knows? Just asking the question. Just positing a suggestion out there, simply because of the fact that, these Republicans are so opposed, so angry with the fact that Joe Biden stopped fentanyl from coming across the border because he caught record numbers of fentanyl crossing the border, and Republicans took that as a negative. Like, what? What are you talking about? You're dumb. Again, poorly educated. Donald Trump loves them. Are we talking about snipe hunts? Big Hook, there is a snipe bird here. We don't catch him, like the joke. Hilarious. See, Dean Bear, 3.3 is Dale Earnhardt's. Oh, 3 is Dale Earnhardt's number. Everything is 3. 3 is the number of the counting, and the number of the counting shall be 3. You shall not count to 2 unless immediately thereafterwards you add to 3. 5 is right out. Yeah, exactly, Molly. Bipolar folks are simply people with frequent mood swings. People thought, hysteria comes from the fact that people thought that it was the uteruses of women that were causing them to be hysterical, and as such, they were diagnosed with hysteria. There are many things that we used to understand poorly that we now understand better. And now Donald Trump's wanting to deport them all. Thanks, Don. Such a good job you're doing.
It is what it is.
The 4 humors. I survived prostate cancer because of early detection. Get you prostate and PSA levels checked as early as 40. Yeah, I haven't. I have a meeting, I think, with. Was it? Do I have to go see the? I think I still have to see the gastroenterologist or whatever it's called. I have lots of freaking appointments coming up. I have an appointment with the urologist to deal with the potential that I could have another kidney stone, or that it's just sitting in the kidney, just to see what is going on and see how we're going to treat it. I have orthopedics coming up because my knees hurt constantly. Even though I have lost 100 pounds, my knees still hurt because I'm sure the damage was already done. And I probably have to go see them to go get the colonoscopy. Then I have a regular doctor's appointment coming up as well. So yeah, yay, fun. More medical expenses, but at least it'll probably be less. Or we'll probably hit the family deductible at some point this year too, not just Cassie's deductible. Let's see. I'm into thipolar. What's thipolar? That's an interesting sound. So the right wing is genetically wired different than us. Yes, exactly, Dean. 100% true. Ancients probably imagined dino bones were dragons. It's funny because we had a school that was getting voucher dollars in the state of Louisiana during the Bobby Jindal administration. That school was getting public money, even though it was a parochial school. And part of the education platform of this parochial school was to use the Loch Ness Monster to prove that evolution doesn't exist. What a great, efficient way to use our funds, right? Using Nessie to prove that evolution isn't real. Yeah, that's the brain surgeons we have in this state. So you have to choose between paying student loans and medical treatments. And other things, like I still have to sell my mother-in-law's house. If anybody wants to move to New Orleans and have a good deal on a house, talk to me, email me, liberaldanradio@gmail.com if you're thinking about moving to New Orleans and, need a house. It's a fixer-upper. Give you a good deal. But, anyway, yeah, I mean, I had a situation where I knew, or I figured, I didn't know, but I guesstimated that I had this issue with my, I was trying to get a new homeowner's insurance policy because my homeowner's insurance was 10 grand. Ridiculous, because we do homeowner's insurance terrible in the state. But we finally got another company that would write a policy in our neighborhood. We saved 4 grand a year on that. However, once we switched that, so we got a check. We switched that, but it was right after we got the current homeowner's policy. So we changed our homeowner's policy, and then we got a refund check from our older homeowner's policy. But in the process of all that happening, my mortgage servicer sold my loan to Mr. Cooper. Whatever that is. Mr. Cooper is the name of a mortgage company. That's, I think, Nation Star or something. Like, it's really some other company, but they decided to go by Mr. Cooper because I guess it sounded cute or cool or whatever. A mortgage company you want to hang out with, if you've ever seen the Hanging with Mr. Cooper show. So when they transferred the money, or they transferred the loan, the escrow account had nothing in it. And they were anticipating a shortfall of like 10 grand or something. Because they didn't realize that I got a new homeowner's insurance. And so I had to work around it and basically be like, okay, yeah, here we go. So in order to deal with the shortfall, my mortgage went up by $200 a month in order to deal with whatever anticipated shortfall they had. But I knew that as soon as we got around to this time, this year, that we would have a better mortgage payment. So fine. Well, our mortgage payment did drop by like $200 a month. And then my mother-in-law's house, that mortgage payment went up because of a shortfall in the escrow account. I'm like, God damn it, can't win for freaking losing. So 1 step forward, 2 steps back, because my life is just a constant set of financial hits over and over and over again. Surprised I'm not more stressed as I am, or that I am right now. Josh, Mr. Cooper bought our mortgage too. Interesting. And actually, I think Mr. Cooper and Rocket Loans, I think, are merging too. And Rocket Loans is the company that has my mother-in-law's loan. So we really need to get this house sold. Pain in the ass. Anyway, I got propofol when I got my colonoscopy. I get why Michael Jackson liked it. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, but of course it was done under doctor's care and not just, by yourself. So, amazing, Lizzie. I don't know about you, but whoever is in the movie Superman, Jack Ryan, Dr. Effing Who, is still waiting till very late to show up. Let's see, what else? Been in this house since 2002. It's paid off. Mazel tov. I still have I think 100 and something thousand left on this mortgage, on this note. I mean, if we sold this house, for some reason we had to sell this house, even though it's in, it's not the best shape. In this house, we have work to do on the floors and the carpets and all that other stuff, and there's pet smells that have to be dealt with. But if we sold the house for what it's technically worth now, we'd get a nice big fat check. Of course, you know, where would we move to? And then how would that be better? So who knows? Colonoscopy is the best sleep I ever had. But did you have the good sleep the night before, or were you running to go take a crap because of the stuff they were putting through you? I'm thinking that even though I've already lost 100 pounds, that because the thing wants to clear you out and give you the shits or whatever, that maybe I might lose another 10 pounds. I don't know how much weight you usually lose before a colonoscopy when you're on that drink cocktail or whatever it is. So, let's see, we are closer to the mortgage than we are to the HELOC. Interesting. Yeah, that's the other thing. I have a HELOC as well, because of the Kia Motors shenanigans, or the Hyundai Finance shenanigans that I had to deal with. I'll talk about that another time. Eventually I have to make all those videos about why Kia sucks. I actually want to make the domain kiasucks.com, if it doesn't already exist, and then have it point to a playlist on here that's going to show exactly why Kia sucks. But anyway, and this. So we covered everything we want to talk about today. I'm shocked I finished before 10. Again, as I said before the show, or at the start of the show, I did want to cover all these topics. We covered all these topics, and then maybe within about 5 or 10 minutes after I log off of here, I will go ahead and switch over to twitch.tv/nerdydan.com if you want to continue chatting about stuff. Be more than happy to have you over there on Twitch. Aaron will be there. Other people might show up, but I'm going to play the new release parts of the Disney Dreamlight Valley game or whatever. So we're going to head on over there. Anybody who can join us over there, be more than happy to have you. We'll continue conversing about all sorts of stuff. It could be political stuff if you want. Doesn't matter to me. We'll talk about whatever you want. I mean, we won't get to the Liberal Dan After Dark stuff, but that's a project long off in the future. But anyway, thanks everybody for watching the show today. We will go ahead and again, if you're on Twitch, on Liberal Dan Radio on Twitch, we will again an abrupt ending for that, but we'll stay on for the entirety of the outro music until that finishes. Then once that finishes, I got to change a couple settings on the OBS, have it point to my other Twitch channel, and we'll be over there in a few, maybe like 5 or so. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining. Appreciate you. And for those to Twitch, have a good one. And if you want to join me over on Nerdy Dan on Twitch, see you in a few. Thank you so much. Peace.